office and gave drew stuff for everybody. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to tonight's edition of the Durham Board of Selectmen. Would we all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All righty. At this time, we would like to welcome Heather Roy to the board. She's a new electee. We also have a gentleman, Joe Roy, who is excused tonight, who's also a new electee. So welcome to them. Everybody will now know who you are because this is the #1 rated show in the town of Durham.
On a Tuesday night.
Before we get going here, is there any amendments to the agenda?
Yeah, I'd like to make an amendment.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to put tree growth down below number 8, because I believe we have to turn into the Board of Assessors at that point.
Yes, you're correct.
Do that towards the end.
Okay. Any other amendments? Seeing none. We don't have to make a motion on that, right? That's just, anybody can move
No,
it.
I think
That's right.
it's just an adjustment of
Okay.
the order.
Thank you.
Yep.
Moving right along, public comment. Anybody here for public comment? Yes, ma'am. Come on up. State your name, address, date of birth, social security number, checking account number 2.
Phyllis Brannon, Brookside Drive. I just wanted to welcome Heather here. And I wanted to thank all of the townspeople who came out for the town meeting, who voted. So I'm on the budget committee, and I just wanted to say welcome to everybody. And I look forward to working with all of you when budget season comes again. So thank you.
Likewise, thank you for volunteering. We appreciate that. Tom does too. All right, because we have a changeover within the board, new electees and so forth, at this time, we were going to nominate a new chair. And at this time, I would like to open that up to anyone who would like to make a nomination.
I just have a question about that with
Yes.
one of the board members being gone. I know that we have a quorum, but is that something that everybody would like to visit tonight without Joe here? Or do we want him to be able to take part in that?
Well, we do have a quorum. If there was 3 of us here, I would say let's postpone it. But I believe next week the other Joe is gone the next meeting, so postponing it for 3 meetings probably wouldn't be kosher. Is that what's your understanding of that?
Well, it is problematic in the sense that, like, to get, like, you signed up with MMA, we need a chair to do that.
There's certain things like if something happens, we wouldn't have anybody. Although I could sign it.
As vice.
Yeah.
I am
She's
kind
already
of,
in
yeah.
MMA, I just found out.
Oh, you are? Oh,
Because of
Joe's
appeals.
not, but they do want us to send them the chair. They
right.
emailed me the
Who
other
the
day.
chair is going to be.
Okay. And my understanding is that that's a role that you're not interested in. Is that correct? You want to remain the vice?
Well, I think it's. Listen, I'm still undecided as whether or not I'll be running next year. I may not. It depends on who's running. You know, I don't want to leave you guys stuck. So I would, without knowing for 100% certainty, it's nice to have continuity.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mind filling in for a meeting here and there, as I've said to the previous board, but my role of chairman per se is not, it's not something obviously that, there's a lot to it. I think there's a lot more to it than people realize. I think we're very fortunate, whether it was Jeffrey Wakeman prior to Kevin or to Kevin, because it's a role that it's pretty extensive. But no, at this time, I think it would be best if somebody else wanted to go that way. Unless nobody wanted it, then it would default. I would default.
Okay.
But it would be beneficial if somebody who really wanted it and really wanted to spearhead that. I think it would be best for everyone from there. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
How you doing?
Okay, so I feel like I'm kind of in the hot seat with this because if with that situation, right? And then
Well, it's not necessarily a situation. You asked me my opinion. It's
yeah,
not
yeah, no. I'm just saying. I mean that you would. I appreciate your honesty with that. Let's leave it at that. So with that being said, I feel like the nomination, right? Because if Joe or Josh, they can't nominate themselves.
Sure they can.
Oh, they can?
Absolutely. I don't think there's anything against it, is there?
That I'm aware of.
I mean, I've never heard of somebody who couldn't, if somebody said, hey, I'd be interested in the job, all it would require is a second.
Okay.
That's really how that boils down to. But like I said,
So, and I'm not adverse to doing the job either. So that'd be fine with me. I don't know, Josh, what your thoughts are on that.
I hadn't thought about it.
So,
I mean, I wouldn't say no. I wouldn't. It doesn't matter to me.
so I'll put it on the table and I'll make a motion that I become chair. We have a second.
is there a second?
I really wish we could wait for Joe.
For just to even out the numbers, or
I feel like this is a big deal and I don't.
I think it is a big deal, but I don't want to minimize it by any stretch of the imagination. But I think whether it's you, Joe, or whomever else is on this board, really needs to recognize, and I'm sure you do, and I'm not saying you don't, is the chair is just here to facilitate meetings and to sign things at the discretion of the town manager and the town. He holds no more power, or she holds no more power than anybody else on this board. So it's really an administrative role as much as it is. It's more of an administrative role than it is a authoritative role. I think people look at the chair as, they're a higher power, but they hold the same as the person that's just newly elected. There is nothing further. And if I'm wrong, Jerry, by all means, speak up.
Well, no, the chair does run the meeting, has to keep
That's what
the
I said.
meeting
Right.
on track. And I
That's
mean, there is some responsibility there.
that's exactly what I said.
Right.
And what I'm saying is, but overall, they're powered. There's no more power for a chair than.
They get one vote.
And
So I guess-
anything that comes onto this agenda is talked about with the members.
Right.
So, a lot of this is just, I want to say, cookbook in some regards, that this is set up in a way that this is Jerry's agenda for the most part, other than a few of the projects that the board feels as though need to move forward to help the town. But there is an administrative burden to doing that, to getting that.
Yeah.
To move forward like that.
And in regards to Joe, if we were going to have 5 here next week, for sure,
Right. No, I understand that.
I would be content with doing
Yeah.
that. And I don't even know if we'll have 5 here in 3 weeks, because nobody can foresee the future.
Right.
So it is important to maintain the board. So that's that, but we need to stop looking at the chair as some total authoritative figure over the board, because that's not what the chair
So
is.
I think that that's where some of my concern lies, is that, I'm going to say, like,
No, you
I'm
say-
just going to say it the way that that's who I am, and I'm not going to change who I am, because of that. But there is a very marked difference between meetings where you were the person running the meeting versus someone else running the meeting. And I get the sense, not only from people who would attend those meetings, but also from the community at large, that they preferred a format that felt more like it did when you were running the meetings. And so I think trying to change or move the culture of our town government forward, that the person who's sitting in that role, I think, needs to recognize that, that situation did exist. And I think a lot more people are interested in the kind of environment that you facilitated.
No, I appreciate that. And I don't mean to cut you off, but I have to cut you off because there is a motion on the floor.
Mhm.
So we can discuss it if somebody wants to second it. So with that said, do I have a second? and then we can get into whatever we want to go from there.
So my two thoughts were that it was more appropriate to wait for Joe to be here also. So I'm somewhat torn, not against you, but because I thought it was more appropriate to have everybody. I also didn't think it was appropriate for someone to nominate themselves, which is the other concern I have.
Okay.
But I'll second the motion.
Okay, now we can make those discussions as far as your concerns and whether or not something is appropriate or not. That's the fairest way to do
Yeah.
it during this time frame.
Yeah. And so I wasn't sure it was appropriate. I don't know that answer off the top of my head.
And I just want to make clear to you
Yeah.
that this isn't, but like my position isn't that I don't want you in that role. It's more that I want you to, I hope that if you are to become the chair, or Josh is to become the chair, or Joe is to become the chair, that point that I just made about the difference between the way that people at the meetings and the community, feels about a more, I don't know what the word is that I'm looking for. I think I made my point earlier, that I would,
Everybody has a different style.
right.
Absolutely.
It's always the way with any meeting. So it's just a
I don't-
matter.
Irregardless of, it's a process, right?
Yeah, it is.
How another individual maybe ran it is really not debatable here because they're not here. All we can do is go by what is set forth in the rules and the bylaws of how to conduct these meetings. That's the most appropriate thing to do. Do sometimes meetings, a lot of times what happens in these meetings, people will put facts over feelings, which is the right thing to do.
Yes.
And I understand that somebody might not like the answer that is given to them, but a fact is a fact. And sometimes facts have unintended consequences, which are people's feelings. And that's not to diminish anybody on how they should feel or anything of that nature, but in order to run the town appropriately, it's responsible. The responsible thing to do here is to elect the appropriate person. And if you guys don't want to elect whomever you don't want to elect, you can make another motion after this one fails. We'll take a vote. That's how it works. Yes, sir. Not
Could I come up here?
technically.
Sure. My name's Alan Plummer. I'm the code officer. Do you use Robert's Rules as your guide to meetings or not?
Yes,
Robert's Rules, Chapter 12 says a person can nominate him or herself.
I know.
Thank
I
you.
said that at the beginning of the meeting. Thank you.
Okay.
So do we have a second on the
Yeah, Josh seconded.
second? And any further discussion? And vote. I'll vote yes.
I'll vote yes.
Okay. So I hereby today, Joe Tone is your new chairman. What do you want to do for vice chairman? Do we have to re-elect that?
Nope.
Okay.
No, not unless somebody wants to oust you.
And that's fine too. You guys are all welcome to do that. But you don't get my friendliness the next time Joe's not here. So Joe, traditionally, the chair will sit up at this end of the table. You're welcome to sit obviously where you want, but I mean, this cameras are facing here. You can have Kevin's seat, my seat, whichever you prefer.
I can probably just, you want me to move now?
Yeah.
I can move now. All right. Changing of the guard.
Changing of the guard and let's go 5 is next. So you're taking
Number
off from there,
5.
buddy. All righty. Thank you.
Yeah.
We're off and running.
That's the longest term I've heard.
All right. All right, well, thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks for volunteering.
Yeah, no, it's not a problem at all.
I thought you were in the Navy, no?
What's that?
I thought you were in the Navy. Just work for them?
Just work for them. All right, we're gonna move to, there's a fee schedule that was presented to us in email, and it's in our package.
Yes.
Alan, I think you probably had a lot to do with putting this together.
Yep.
You want to run us through this?
Sure.
And just for everybody's edification, we had an earlier schedule that we looked at, and Alan went back and made some adjustments to this. And I think it's pretty straightforward here, but
Mhm.
go right ahead.
So George DeBurge actually did the majority of work on this fee schedule, by the way. So he did the research with other towns, and he provided that for the board last meeting, which I didn't include it on this meeting, which I probably should have because there are new members, but I can explain if you have questions about it. So what happened last meeting, just to quickly recap, was I presented lots of different fee schedule changes, but some of those required more than just this dollar amount to this dollar amount. So the select board felt uncomfortable with changing those because it may affect the ordinance. So in fact, those questions are still out. And we've talked to MMA, and we're going to talk to our town attorney, because that's a possibility that the select board may have more power than they think they do with this kind of thing, because the fees are in there. So we still have some questions out. But what I did was I pulled the ones out that have X fee before, and I'm proposing a new fee now. So just kind of like things, no changes to the structure of how they're charged. So those are residential construction, conditional use permits, demolition, and electric permit. So you can see that on this sheet.
Yep.
And that's a summary of
Sheet in
it.
the back.
The proposed version, the proposed paper is just our actual fee schedule with the new things lined out and red if they're new. So I can tell you what the changes are, and they're all based on data from area towns. George got information from Gray, New Gloucester, North Yarmouth, Pownell, and Sabattis. Residential construction. Currently, we charge 25 cents a square foot for residential construction. Proposed fee is 40 cents a square foot. The average for area towns is 41 cents per square foot. Conditional use permit is $50 now. Proposed fee is $225. So that's really low. The average for area towns is $293 for conditional use permit. Demolition, we charge $0 for demolition fee. I propose $25. The average for area town is $55. Electrical permit is a $75 flat fee. I propose $8 a square foot, minimum of $120. That would be for new construction or for home.
Was it $8 or 8 cents?
8 cents. Oh, sorry. Yeah, $8. I would like $8, please.
I don't know if I can sign off on that.
So, sorry.
Tough one.
And average, most towns around do 8 cents a square foot for electrical permitting. So a couple of things. Conditional use permit entails a huge amount of work by the planning board, huge amount of work. And $50 just doesn't seem right for that. We would still be, for residential construction, would still be under the average for area towns by a penny. But you can see the discrepancy, 25 cents to 40 cents is quite a jump. Demolition, the reason I want a demolition fee is CEO has a requirement when someone comes in and asks for a demolition to hand them a document from DEP and say, I need you to review this and report if you have hazardous materials in that building. It's a requirement. If they don't have a fee, they may not care about any. They may not come in and say, I'm demolishing anything. Everyone knows that there's no demolition fee. So by having a fee, we're saying you have to come in and get a permit, and I'm going to give them that document so that they have to disclose any kind of hazardous material in their building. And the electric permit, I want to down the road do some changes to lots of different things, in particular the electric permit. But that's just a more appropriate fee for whole house construction when they build a whole house. So, anyone have any questions?
I do. Oh, go ahead.
But no, you
No.
wouldn't have said it.
So, as you know, I like to ask questions I think I know the answer to, so. I have a couple questions, so. Are these, the changes you brought to us tonight, are those the ones that you believe don't need changes to the ordinances?
Yes.
And there's questions that have been raised over the years about limiting growth and those sorts of things. What effect on growth would these changes have?
I can't foresee that future, but
Um,
other town, when I talk to people, our contractors here in town, they're very happy with our fees.
That's what I thought. And so the only comment I would make to that is, I think we have to decide, there's been talk through town about whether we want to limit growth at some point in some way. Is this an appropriate way to try to do it, to raise the fees? I don't personally think that we have to look at the other towns and say, this is what they're charging, we need to be comparable. If it limits growth in a way, is that what we want to do? And if so, is this a way to do it? And I'm not saying one way or the other, but that's just comments that have been made. And so I wanted to raise that as a starting point because, it's a discussion that I think people want us to have and we should have.
Remember that the ordinance specifies that you guys will look at comparisons for area towns. So clearly, the ordinance is implying you should look at what other people are doing around us.
Right.
And
But I don't think we're bound by it, is what I would say.
I don't know if we're bound by it, but we're not. It's probably, for lack of better words, inappropriate to say, as a board, like, hey, we feel we want to, let's say, curb the housing curve as far as growth. So we're going to implement these crazy fees, and that's probably why that language is in there. So to prevent that.
I don't disagree. It was just a way to start the conversation.
I got you.
Yeah, and I'm looking at this more that it's covering our costs to actually go out and have Alan and others go and do the upfront work for for just regular town business. Not so much as a money maker or a how do you say a dissuasion to not build, right? Is kind of how I've been looking at this. I mean, the fees were very low. I mean, all the other fees you did present, although some of those may have some tails to it that tie to the ordinances. They certainly were an eye opener in regards to what another town in the surrounding area would be charging for the same level of service that we're providing.
But does it cover the cost? Is $225 cover the cost of a conditional use permit?
probably still not.
That's
That's what.
What's the conditional use permit? Like, what's it for? It could in some cases.
some
It
cases.
could.
And if
It's very
well,
basic,
very
yes.
basic.
That's probably.
How many of
yeah,
those do you
right.
get?
Right.
What-
Pendulum
on
there.
average?
I don't know. I'd have to ask George that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, it could be a very long process, and 225 doesn't come close to that.
So I just want to make sure that I understand. This was elected in 2022, adopted by the select board in 2022. That's what it says at the top of this paper.
Mhm.
And the ones that you had presented, that were embedded in the ordinance, is that what I'm hearing?
No. So before this fee structure was adopted, all the fees were embedded in the
Right.
ordinance. Everything was in the ordinance.
Yeah.
And they pulled them out before I got here,
Mm-hmm.
and they were sitting out there.
And we voted
With
on
no-
that. We voted on that change at
Last
town
year.
meeting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Correct. And then they didn't actually get the pulled out fee structure didn't get voted on until after I was here, and I said, where's the fee structure? I can't charge fees if I don't have a
Right.
voted in fee structure. So they voted for those. Some of the things I suggested in there require, like, sometimes there's no ordinance for it, like a solar array has no ordinance for it.
Mhm.
And one of the things that we've heard is that we can't, if we don't have an ordinance for it, that we can't create a fee for it.
Okay.
But we have more information. We do need to do some more tracking down of that, of your power as select board members. Because it's possible that that we can, based on the vote that they took it in town,
Mhm.
you have more authority than you maybe thought you did.
So do we have
And we
that
need to find
language
out.
available of what that warrant article was? Because if I remember correctly, it was that the select board could adopt a fee schedule annually. And so what my concern is that if we want to do additional adopting, once we find out those answers, if we were to vote on this tonight, this is our one shot for this year. And so I have a little bit of concerns around that.
Is it our one shot for this year?
I don't know.
It might be the one shot for the line item, but I'm not thinking that.
That
I'm thinking-
particular.
I'm thinking the line item is, a once a year, but you could do one line item every meeting, I think, and you could, not that we would do that, but I don't think there's.
If that's the case, then I would feel comfortable with that. But I think if this is, like I said, if this is the only time that we get a shot at this and we don't have those answers, I wouldn't want to vote on this tonight.
Well, also something to think about is they've never been changed.
Mhm.
They haven't been changed for many, many, many years.
Right.
So,
Regarding the electrical permit, it's 8 cents a square, cut and dry.
yep,
So
for new construction.
for new construction, so what would we charge for, like, if I go from 100 amp to a 200 amp service at my house?
I would charge a $75
Charge
fee
a
based on that.
$75 fee base. So there is a flat. And then how is it applicable with, like, HUD and modular homes?
I can't, I have no jurisdiction over.
So you
HUD
would just charge the
homes.
meter fee, the $75?
Yep. They do,
They're state inspected. I
they'll
get
have to be
Right.
it'll be a flat fee for those. So,
Okay.
because
There's no differential.
I don't inspect, I
Right.
just check for safety in those.
GFIs.
Yeah.
So,
And is the $120 minimum that's noted on the third page, is that going to be in
Yeah, I
the fee?
You
Did I miss
could,
it? I don't
um,
see it.
so you could adjust that or you could eliminate that too. So it's up to you about that. What do you mean?
Well, it says on page 3, it says in the notes, it says minimum $120,
Right.
which I took to assume that it's $120 minimum.
And that's a holdover because it doesn't say that in our electrical ordinance right now. It doesn't have a minimum. So you probably cannot vote that in, the 120. So line
we cannot vote that?
the 120 part, the minimum of a 120. You can go from 75 to 8 cents a square foot.
Well, I think one of the reasons why I was up for this 8 cents, because you did have a minimum. So if somebody does build a tiny house that's 400 square feet, then I'm
Yeah.
charging $32 for an electrical permit. Because you can't even drive over there for $32.
Yeah.
So I like the $120 is where I was going
Right.
with.
I don't know because we don't have that. So that would, yeah. I think
But it's part of the fees that we can set, right?
Yep.
So,
So you could do 120 minimum, then 8 cents a square foot.
beyond
Is
that.
it or is it and
Beyond that.
Yeah,
So it's
it's
8
so it's
cents a
120 plus
plus
So-
8 cents a square foot after?
after whatever that your 120 is
Yeah.
allotted,
Yeah.
right?
That's,
So that's something I would like to change. I would like to change the whole structure of it, but that's more involved than this. So that's down the road. Eventually, I want to go to a per opening for under a certain number of openings, and that's what I've talked to electricians. They really like per opening charges. So-
Could you define per opening for
Yep,
us?
opening is putting in an outlet, installing a new light. That would be 2 openings. So 1 to 20 openings would be $75.
Yeah.
20 to 35 openings would
Based on
be
fixtures.
$120. More than that goes to the 8 cents, or new construction goes to 8 cents. So that's what I'd like to do, but that's beyond the scope of what you're willing to do right now.
So that's what my question was going to be, is that I looked at like what Lisbon does, and their electrical fee is very involved, and part of it includes that opening
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah.
And I wish that I had had time before I came here to go into like their budget information and see what kind of revenue they were generating from electrical permits, because have you looked at theirs? This is really involved.
Yeah, and I've talked to electricians about it because they're the people that want to know, and they don't like complicated.
Right.
None of the contractors like complicated.
Yeah.
So I want to
This
make
is-
it as
this
simple
is-
as possible.
This is pretty standard. I think Lisbon and some of the other towns, I mean, they get pretty in-depth because they do, believe it or not, quite a bit of commercial in Lisbon, so they,
They have a lot of
They-
different situations.
yeah. And
So-
sometimes it's,
I can tell you based on what we charge now.
Yeah.
I bring $8,000 to $9,000 in a year for electrical permits only. So that's significant, and that's low.
Mhm.
So
is there any other changes that you think or may be presenting on this sheet for this coming year that you're in the works on?
on
And so-
this sheet,
No, well, and any other changes forthcoming that are gonna be proposed in the next 6 months or 3 months or?
I don't know the timeline because we need to check with our attorney. We need to check with Jack Canway about the authority you guys have to set the fees. Because there's lots of different ways to look at that.
Well, we know we can set the fees once because we have town authorization to do that. So that was, so I guess, okay.
So the other changes would be ordinance, structural changes.
I get
about
that.
How you.
No, just from a fees perspective, I was just curious if there were gonna be any more proposed
So
fees.
like one of the
No.
things is like our swimming pool is $25. And when I looked at just like 5 towns, every single other town that I looked at was $100.
Yeah.
So I can't assume that a swimming pool is related to the ordinance. And so, I mean, would you be looking at those kinds of things also to?
Yes.
Okay. And
Yep.
so I think that's what you're asking, if like
Yeah.
that's going to come in the next 6 months.
It depends on what Jack says.
Okay.
I don't know. Yes, I would like it to move, I'll move forward.
Okay, so by that rationale, if Jack says, no, you get the one shot based off the ordinance, there's no other thing, these will be the last ones we see this year.
Yep.
Okay, all right, that's all I needed, yeah.
So the warrant says, I'll read it to you. It says amendments to fee schedule to allow the select board to periodically set fees for permits and applications based on analysis of actual cost
Can do this.
and comparisons with similar towns. So it's not
Nice.
necessarily a one shot.
Okay.
I think that allows you also to be able to add fees if he comes back and says, like, say for the solar or something else, we could add a fee in if we felt as though there was a run on something that needed attention.
Well, they're desperately overdue, so, I'd like to make a motion, to adopt the fees that are being proposed tonight. With residential construction going to 40 cents per square foot, conditional use permit going to $2.25, demolition permit going to 25, and an electrical permit going to 8 cents a square foot.
Can I make a friendly amendment to that to include the minimum of $120 for the electrical permit?
Are you all in favor of that? Yes, I will accept that amendment.
I would second, I have one question, but I would second it.
All right, got a second? Go ahead, Josh.
Just remind me, the fees that we're not addressing those are the ones that are specifically set forth in the ordinance?
Some aren't at all in the ordinance whatsoever. So there's a combination of those.
Okay.
Some are more in depth and some aren't in the ordinance at all. So I only looked at the ones that had this amount's what we charge, we can change it to this amount. That's what I tried to do with these.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so I got a motion on the floor to accept the fee schedule as presented with a change of putting $120 minimum for electrical permanent services, and then 8 cents a square foot thereafter. Do I
And
have?
can I ask a silly question?
Absolutely.
This will be effective starting tomorrow morning, right?
Do I?
You already have a second.
I already have a second?
Yeah.
All in favor? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Alan, George?
That is a good question about tomorrow morning. I don't know if you're going to post them or. Great question. The guy that came in today got a hell of a deal, right? Too bad, so slow.
All right. Let's see here. We move tree growth down. So managers report.
All right, well, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I had welcome newly elected officers, but so welcome. Joe's not here, so I can't really welcome him. But congratulations. I'm looking forward to working with you and should be a good year.
That'll be fun.
So I just wanted to, typically I would have a packet, but I didn't want to do a packet now and then packet for Joe. So trainings. There's one on elected officials workshop. You probably haven't done any of that since you're newly elected.
I did the,
Jerry, I think you should get together with the candidate, the new appointees and
Yeah,
go over this.
I just wanted to just let her know that there's one on April 26th. It's just.
I just don't want to be asking her personal
Right.
stuff on them.
No.
Oh, yeah.
I just want to just let her know
Okay.
that there's a workshop. It's Zoom if
yeah,
you want to
I'll
attend
look
it.
at what that is, and if I haven't done it, I will.
And you're on the member side of the
Yes.
house, okay?
Yeah, thank
So-
you.
Yep. So I'm going to update you on the ball field lease. So I've updated that. The town attorney has looked at it just to make sure it's all good. It is in the hands of Mike Clark right now to review. If he likes it, we'll sign it and we should be done with that.
Cool. Okay,
So
great.
There's that. Ordinance Review Committee, if you look to George's report, section 5 specifically, we're looking to, for this very reason why Alan was up here with our ordinance, we're looking to put together a ordinance review committee to look at our ordinances. And what I'm looking for tonight is a vote to see if you want to move forward with this or not. So what he's discussed in here what that is. So he's looking for the leadership of the boards and commissions to sit on this ordinance review committee. So a select board member, planning board member, the chair or the vice chair, same with the Board of Appeals, because it all sort of ties in together, the Historic District Commission and Conservation Commission. And what this would do is we would look at the hot ticket ordinances that are coming down from the legislature in Augusta, like affordable housing, or anything like that, to kind of, and look at our own ordinances to see if they need updating and if they kind of lining up. So a lot of towns will have these ordinance review committees to update the ordinances as things change in Augusta. We change them accordingly. So if that's something the board is looking, that would like to see, I just need how you feel about that and if you want, if that's what you're looking to do.
Discussion.
If you're all set.
So one point that I would like to make, I'm absolutely in favor of all of this. I'm not sure I know that a lot of people that are sit at this table have been to our workshops that we've had regarding the ordinance changes. And there's one resident who has a very clear understanding for language structure and has made some really impactful recommendations that I know George has, taken that feedback and implemented those things. And so having this be only made up of existing board leadership, that would exclude someone like that from being like right at the table from the beginning to be able to make those recommendations. And so I am absolutely in favor of this, but I would love to be able to have one spot available to a resident if that was something that we could consider.
Are they asking for a committee member or for Joe Blow, the citizen, or both?
I think he's basically pitching here a concept. He had
Right.
one concept was that, but I don't think.
We can ask him.
We're
Yeah.
we're just sort of giving you some guidelines, but you can
Right.
certainly change them. If you think you'd want a resident on the board, that you can do that.
Right.
So my concern is, this is talking about meeting once after town meeting. I don't think this is a one-time shot.
No, it would be more than that.
Right.
And
and so I agree. I don't think, I don't, I don't know that it needs to be limited to the leadership of the commissions. I do think, having the input of townspeople would be appropriate. I think having, to me, in this in this situation, one or two members of each board or commission and public, you're talking, if you have two, that's 10 elected or appointed officials and, however many residents, I would say at least 5. And to me, that's more appropriate than just limiting it to, so otherwise, the idea I like, this proposal, I'm not a big fan of. But I would be open to having you come back at the next meeting with a proposal that you and George think is appropriate, and then we can discuss. I'd like to see, draft sort of bylaws, what it's going to look like, and
Yeah, I think the reason for the board members is because they're already looking at some of this stuff, so they're already in the know. If you bring someone in from the outside, it's going to be, they're going to always be wanting to be caught up to speed because they're sitting on boards that are already talking about some of these issues. So it's more or
but
less.
you're talking the historic.
Yeah, because
the historic commission isn't looking at what the conservation commission is looking at.
No, they're not.
So when you're going to have that anyway, to an extent. So to me, the input from the town is something that people want and have historically wanted in this town. And to me, that is more important than saying, I don't want to catch you up, because I think it's pretty easy to catch people up.
Okay.
Can I make an additional point to that? So while I think this leaves out our agricultural sector, if we're just looking at this structure, and that's like a huge part of Durham.
Mhm.
And so I'm absolutely in agreement with this. I'm just not sure that this particular structure is going to hit all the spots.
Okay, and George and I are more than willing to put down your recommendations and bring something forward back to you with those recommendations, what it would look like.
Yeah, but I'm looking at this also as, an advisory committee as well,
Yes.
looking
Right.
at our growth plans, our comprehensive plan,
So-
in getting the input from all the different committee members, I think is important. I agree. Public input is also, I could be swayed either way. I think it could be structured in either direction, whether it be committee members that are the steering committee that are in the know of what each of the committees is and groups are going after, and then bringing in the public, which has had, I'll say, some success and some not. In some cases, the word has not gotten out or broadly enough in some situations. But I think, like I said, I could go either way with this, Jerry. I don't know if
I
see
think
what the
in
idea
this
is
day and
here.
age, we have a lot of times that we can't even fill most of the committees in here. There's a lot
Right,
of
that's the
committees,
other thing.
a lot of committees that this town needs.
Yeah.
This, I don't disagree one iota that it also needs this committee. I think that's one of the challenges of the board that needs to look at
Mhm.
in further discussion this year, what direction or what we would like to foresee moving forward with public input, of course, and then implement something, whether it's, because there's so many facets to this, as Heather mentioned, it encompasses so many different entities in town, whether it's the horticultural, the agricultural, the residential folks, very few businesses, but they do have a presence in this town. That I think there's a lot to put. I think this is more of a, what is the planning board and so forth. Well, I mean, we have a committee essentially that does this. It's called the planning board.
Yeah, to look at specific things that.
Correct.
But not.
This is
but
actually
not
trying
that-
to reinvent, in my opinion, we're going back to the drawing board on a comprehensive plan.
Well, some of our ordinances are old and they're not they're not really lined up, and that's what we want.
I
to
get
look
it,
at.
but we hired a planner for that. And many years ago, that was the whole point of us hiring a planner, because we need to get these things in line. So between the planner and the planning board and so forth, you know, they need to start coming together with proposals and moving forward that way. We can get committees till we're blue in the face. Hopefully we can get somebody to attend them, but it doesn't really solve the problem a lot of times, because one week, 2 people show up. Another week, nobody shows up. Another week, it's canceled.
Yeah, and this is a decision completely up to the board. We're just bringing it. If you don't like it, we can exit. That's up to you.
Yeah, I just don't like to be top heavy. Like I'm not a big in favor of injecting myself as a select board member on every single board that transpires in the town of Durham. I think boards need to exist, and that entity needs to exist, and then bring their findings or whatever and make a presentation to this board, or vice versa, or something of that nature. I don't think everything should be run by everybody, the same people. Let's just leave it at that.
Right. So there's 2 questions. Do you want an ordinance review committee? If you don't, then we're done.
I think our
If you
ordinances
do,
need
what
to
would
be,
you want to be made up of? So we can, that's the,
I think our ordinances need to be further cleaned up before we can have a committee.
I think it's.
I think our biggest problem with our ordinance is the average layperson who would serve on these committees wouldn't understand them. That's been our problem with our ordinances from the get-go.
Do you think that some of the drive for this is because it literally took 3 years to pass something?
yeah, you have
That
one
was worked
person
on for-
working on it. It has to
And-
talk
and
to
maybe-
talk
right.
to everybody. 'cause
Well,
everybody's-
and maybe that what happened was he feels like his scope of, like, he's got a lot on his plate, right, with this, but also with supporting the planning board and like that type of thing, that maybe this is his way of trying to delegate some of that.
Yeah, get input from people in town on what direction they want to go in.
Again, my only concern with that is we just did a pretty extensive, spent a lot of time and energy. Just, when was that, 3 years ago, 4 years ago? And we're already basically looking, it sounds like we're looking to like, hey, let's start the wheel over again.
What will you do? Because things happen up in Augusta that affect the town.
Well, that's always going to happen.
Right.
That's always going to happen. That's been happening
So
since.
Topsom has an ordinance review committee, and they review, and then every 3 years they put out their updates. I'm just putting that out there as an
So-
example.
So forgive me, so in the past, the planning board would review
Mhm.
the changes, proposed changes, and then now we have a town planner involved with the planning board. I guess I feel more though that group should be presenting 5 new items that showed up from Augusta that we need to talk about, whether that's solar panels or
Do you-
some
do you-
other subject.
Okay.
I'm just wondering why we can't have, why that wouldn't be an option.
I think
Just
George was trying to get representation from the other
No,
committees.
I get it.
we-
I get the education part of it, of getting us involved earlier, because we get involved later and they've already hashed out, 50 items, and now they're gonna rehash out the same 50 items with a new bunch of people. But I guess if,
I think, if you commission a board, like the planning board, and they come to you with, I don't think it should be rehashing because, we don't like it. If the
Well,
board, you know what I mean? We
yeah,
get too much individual biases towards these things.
yes,
If a board comes with a proposal, it's our obligation to present it.
right.
We,
So the question is, do the 4 of us think that we should delegate, make the planning board do that, or do we want an
Right.
ordinance committee?
that's exactly right.
So,
Planning board has always dealt with
Yeah,
ordinances.
I believe they
That
already
is-
have that.
What is, that's kind of their mandate.
That has been their charter, to manage that, to manage that.
But I
And
guess
the
that's the
town
answer.
planner is just an addition to that, so, he needs to bring those to the planning board and say, what do you guys think about A, B, C, D? They need to hash it all out and then bring that to us.
it's a little different. I mean, the planning board is looking at subdivisions and getting
Yeah.
those approvals and that sort of thing. This is strictly,
No, the
Ordinance
planning board
review.
looks at ordinances too.
I get
And I
that.
understand right now we have a big influx, but with everything passes, and there'll be some times where there's not a lot of subdivisions, and
Right.
you'll have a lot of downtime, and that's when those things get done.
Right. That's what's happened in the past.
That's exactly what's happened in the past.
Right. Yeah,
But I'm all for a citizen, I'm always for citizen
right.
participation in anything, because then it's, well, you know, Joe, Harry, Susie from West Bend, South Bend, and every other Bend came around, and this is what they'd like to do, and we're bringing it for the town because this is what was proposed.
Okay, so is it your wish to have the planning board review ordinances?
That's not our wish, that's what their mandate is.
Okay, well, Rich, though, there are different, like Heather said, there are ordinance review committees in towns, and they also have planning boards, so there is a
There
different.
are, they're
role.
bigger towns than this though.
Right, but it's the same idea. I mean,
Right, you have the
size
same,
doesn't really,
Well, it seems superfluous to me.
right.
How's that?
So I
That's
feel,
fine.
I mean,
That's
I can
fine.
understand based on number one, like even with the shoreland zoning, when we went through that, that was way back when John Semino was chair of the planning board.
Right.
And then that had to go back to the state and there were other things that needed to get changed. And, you know, that was a very long process. And then that finally got passed. And then we worked on the next four. One of them was the marijuana question, you know, like all of that type of thing. And then those didn't go through. And then we had resource protection for 2 years where we finally, so now we've got our shoreland done. Now we've got our resource protection done. But the historic, I know that George originally had that on the docket to look at this year. And I think it just got convoluted with all of the other things that were involved. What I think has happened is that for whatever reason, it has been multiple years that it's taken us to get to this point, and our ordinance in those other areas. I mean, the shoreland zoning was huge because we weren't in compliance with state mandates, right?
Right.
When we got that passed, now we are. And I think that probably the idea around this is like how we just passed our zoning map is to get everything current because it's been so long that it hasn't been addressed. And it's unfortunate that it's at the same time that there's all of this influx because we have, for lack of a better word, out of date ordinances. And I remember John actually stood up at town meeting and said, we have to pass this because not only this part, but other parts, this vehicle that the planning board has to use as their tool is not current and updated and accurate. And so, you know, that's why he was advocating for that. I think it's important. I think it's gone on for too long that we aren't updating on a regular basis what needs to be updated. I think the planning board that I mean, I go to those meetings, they can't address more than one issue at that meeting in a 3 or 4 hour meeting. I just don't know how realistic it is to put that on that committee. I mean, I know it's their job. I completely recognize that. Based on all of the things that they're trying to review in terms of the applications in front of them and also trying to update this 300-page ordinance, it just doesn't seem like that's realistic.
Well, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't know. I'm not one for rewriting the charter of the planning board.
yeah,
Their directive is their directive. Now, every time a planning board, somebody comes before or wants to get on the planning board, you know, maybe the planning board is doing applications one session and the next session is their workshop session to work on ordinances, and they're not seeing back to back to back to back to back. I don't know how that all works. But the fact of the matter is this committee that would be formed would have no power. It's just a consultant.
Right,
right.
Right.
exactly.
That was, yeah.
Anybody can present anything or go to a planning board and lend input when these things are going on. But at the end of the day, it's going to be the planning board's decision to bring it to us and then our decision to bring it to the town.
Do you know that if in other towns, the like ordinance committee is getting to the point where they have draft ordinances that they're proposing to planning boards?
They're changing the language in existing ordinance to bring it up to 2023. That's, they're suggesting ordinance changes
They are
to
a
a specific
review committee
ordinance.
or an
Yeah.
actually draft,
So-
because the drafting
No,
should be
they're
done by
ordinance
the,
review
they're
committee.
just a review committee,
Right, they're-
correct. So the updating still has to, but that's my point. The updating still has to be
Still
done by the
has to be
planning board.
done.
So can we, the planning board chair comes at our next meeting, right?
Yeah,
Well, I think
I was
George
just gonna
could
say the
update-
same thing. It,
And so,
I think George could update the ordinance based on that and bring that to that, and the planning board can continue with their
I just-
applications and that sort of
I
thing.
just got, so I think, yeah, I'm thinking that we probably want George and John to bring us some examples of where this committee might help them versus just the, I get the idea of doing a committee here, but what is it, what is it different that the committee would do outside of the planning board activities? Is the committee reporting into the planning board and presenting them with the language or the changes that should be instituted or considered, and then the planning board and the planner are then bringing that to us? So how does this work? How is this expected to work? Or does that committee report directly to us, which I think is what they're proposing here? It's hard to tell. It could go either way. But
Any major ordinance change will have to be voted on at town meeting.
I get that, but
Jerry, this was-
but working up to it
From
is
George.
working up.
If
to
George is
it-
gonna present something to the board, he should probably be here.
Yeah.
That'll save all this.
Well, I
that
just,
that would-
it was just it's an idea to have a.
Yep.
It's a big
He
idea.
put, well, no, but it's only section 5.
I get it, but if
That's
we're
his
gonna
re-
make a presentation
his
to the board
report.
and
Well,
request
it's really-
services,
It was really just part of my report.
Yep.
Wasn't really, we can make it an agenda item if you like, Rich.
not really, but.
But we don't have to. We could just totally nix it. I'll just tell George that.
No, I think
I'd
it
like
is
to-
important to address. I mean,
I'd
I'd
like-
like to talk to George and John about it.
I'd
I'd
like
like
to,
to table the discussion till our next meeting when at least the planning board chair will be here.
Well, it really needs to be George, if he's the
Well,
one
I
presenting.
think so too, but at least the planning board chair will be here at the next meeting and we can
Go over his role or define, see
Yeah.
what his.
make sure there's an agreement as to
Right.
what that role is.
No, I would agree with that.
right,
I'd agree
yeah,
with that.
that'd be fine.
Okay.
But I think it's silly to have the conversation without at least one of them,
Yeah.
preferably both of them here.
Yeah, we
All right,
need input.
see if we can get him here next, the next meeting.
The 25th.
Okay. Town office hours. So currently, right now, we work that window right there for 28 hours a week. We are moving to 35 hours a week, which means we'll be open all day on Wednesday, but we'll have to close on Friday. So it'll be 8 to 5, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 10 to 6 on Thursday, closed on Friday.
And just because I don't know, is that a decision that the board had it, you made that decision? That's not something
That's
that.
town
Yeah.
manager.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
I just didn't know because I didn't know if
Yep,
that took place before I
that's-
got
yeah.
here.
I will say this though, Heather, most towns, because of what's going on in this world, as far as labor shortages and so forth, it's becoming pretty common. Most towns are closed on Fridays.
Yeah.
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 The
I
one
just know you
thing-
were busy this past Friday, right?
Yeah, we
Slammed.
were. And part of that, some of that, though, I think is because we're closed all day on Wednesday.
Yeah.
And so people make up for it on the following days. Or the beginning of the month and the end of the month is always the busiest times. So, but we're getting 7 more hours of window time with the schedule and no more half days because those are really inefficient. You come in, you set up, you do a few, then you leave. And so this is a much
When is
better
that going to be
schedule.
effective?
May 1st.
And you're going to publicize that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And do
May
you-
1st is a Monday, so it's a good week to start. I mean, I could do it next week, but
No, I think everyone's good.
I have to, right,
That's
because I gotta
appropriate.
have some staff meetings and that actually allows us right now for me to have weekly staff meetings if I have to with whatever the issue is with those hours. Because they'll be here at 9, but we don't open till 10 on Thursday, so that gives me that hour to talk to them or do whatever I need to do. So it's a pretty good schedule. They all bought into it. And what I like is we were all here on Wednesday and people would drive in, get out of their car and pull on the door and that's when they find out we were closed, and it would bother me,
Bigger sign, buddy.
you know, and so
So
if
we've
there's,
had-
if there's a bunch of cars here, we should be open. That's the way I see it, especially if it's all day.
So we've had multiple changes of business hours over the last couple of years. Do you foresee once you get into this schedule, is this like you're going to try this out and see how it goes, and if there's not the need, or whatever, or is this something that you think is going to remain and be consistent? I think that's one of the complaints that I hear a lot of, is that the town office hours have changed so many times that
Right.
people don't know when the town office is open or not.
I want to keep it that way, and it fits the way the budget is right now too, because they're scheduled for 36 hours.
And I also think we had some other issues that were compounding that at the time, not to mention COVID.
Right.
That
And
and
so I think it's been in flux for a couple of years,
Yeah.
3 years now, and I think setting it
And-
in the labor market also, it sets it up nicely for everybody to have a consistent schedule and one that's in lines with the other towns and other businesses.
And if it's been over the last couple of years where it's been inconsistent, I think closing on that Wednesday where you had brand new staff with virtually no municipal experience at all needed that day to just catch up and say, okay, what do we do with this? How do we do that? To figure that out without having interruptions at the window. But now they're getting pretty good at what they're doing. So I think they're gonna be cooking with gas now. So
Barring any unforeseen circumstances, these will be our hours. moving
these
forward.
are the hours that we're gonna go with.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds like a plan.
And I'm hoping maybe by this time next year, we can stick them right on the door instead of on a piece of paper that's taped to the window.
Yeah, that was what my question was leading
The
to.
digital
Right.
sign, buddy. You gotta get the digital sign.
Well, I know.
Not unless we put a fee.
Neon.
Towns don't make
So,
sense.
but that is a good idea. I didn't include a sign this year.
No,
for-
but it's
for the
something we've
budget.
talked about for, God, since
Remind me-
I've been on this board.
Remind me
We have
next
those
budget
ARPA
season.
funds.
Might have a little leftover.
Yeah.
So that's basically all I have
Lights would be-
right now as far as the report. Other than that, everything's going really well.
Awesome.
What about that LD?
Oh, yeah, I didn't do that, did I? So, yeah, sorry. Thank you, Heather, for that. So John Talbot, the chair of the planning board, sent this, and he's asking if the board would support sending this letter to Senator Braky's office, asking him, supporting that they delay the affordable housing
Mhm.
to July, because they're still in rulemaking, so it's still in flux. So no towns really kind of know where this is all coming down right now.
Right.
So.
So they had a public hearing today on LD 214, and it was, I don't know what the outcome was. I don't know if those things even get decided, then, but asking that towns with populations under 10,000 people were not subject to this.
Right.
Correct. That's the way I read it too.
Yeah.
So they'll vote on that eventually. So that
Right.
today was the hearing, so.
So my only question with this was, why not our state rep who actually lives in Durham too? So that was my only question. Otherwise, I support this letter because I think it's what's best for the town.
Mhm.
But that was my,
I didn't catch your,
why we're sending it to Senator Braky who lives in Auburn. Why not also to our state rep who lives in Durham?
good question.
Because-
We can ask
because
John that.
I'm okay sending this. I would just say send it to both.
Okay. It's just on draft. I'll put it on letterhead. Who wants to sign? You want me to sign it? What, do you want the chair to sign it? How do you
Either
want that
one.
to go?
Why don't you both sign it? We got it covered.
Okay, we
I
can
could
do
do
that.
that.
So what I'll do is I'll just put this on letterhead.
Yep, draw it up. I can
Um,
swing back in tomorrow.
We'll make two of them.
Yep.
One to go to each.
We have John sign it.
Oh, John Talbot.
Mhm.
Yep, we can do
The
that.
more the merrier.
Right, exactly.
Committee.
We just
You-
put it up,
you
hang it
have
out
it.
on the door and come Friday morning, everyone can
Just
sign
like
it.
just like yours. We got like a little five. You're gonna do some signing here pretty
Oh,
quick.
this is
Oh,
my
yeah,
first
this-
rodeo here, buddy. I've done
Yeah,
this
yeah,
one before. It actually looks a little light this year.
So,
Okay,
Okay, yes, so that's it.
thank you, Jerry. Appreciate it. Okay, we had moved in, so we got town staff and committee reappointments.
Yeah, so get your pen, they're all right here. If you wanted to,
We want
you
to, actually, I
you
should
could
have,
table that and
I was gonna say, I should have put this on bottom of number 7 rather than
Yeah.
number 8.
you want to do that and
Yeah.
move into the Board of Assessors and
Yeah,
take care.
let's, yeah, so we have to, do 2, sorry, I lost my place here. Donna Hayes has submitted us an item in regards to tree growth penalties, and we need to become assessors
Yes,
before
you need to ask.
we just, so, make a motion that we move into becoming the border assessors. for
Second
Town of
that.
Durham. A second, all in favor in the usual manner? All right. So we are now the Board of Assessors. So Donna here, if you haven't read it, it's a request by a personal representative of the state of Roger Bertrand to remove 2 lots from the tree growth program. She met with all the taxpayers involved, with taxpayers involved, and there is a fee to withdraw from this program. And what we have in front of us is the supplemental paperwork, which requires our signatures for them to withdraw. And Donna has laid out the, depending on the length, I'll shorten my reading of this. Depending upon the length of time that the parcel has been enrolled, penalty is between 20% and 30% of the difference between the 100% tree growth value and the fair market value of the land. And she asked if we had any questions. So I've read through this. I had no questions. I'm assuming Donna's calculations are correct on the fines or fees assigned here.
Yeah, I didn't have any concerns with this whatsoever, with the exception of we need to change our tax collector on.
Oh, yeah, look at that.
The one question that I have is that this fee is paid to the town?
Yeah, that comes back to our coffers. Yes, absolutely.
You get kind of like an.
I didn't know if it was,
Gotcha.
if that goes to the state, because tree growth is a
Well, some of
state
it
program.
might, some of it might. I can't say all of it does, but it is.
It's all collected by the
Yeah,
town.
you
It's all
do it on
collected by
this
the
one.
town.
Okay.
I don't know how it's allocated there.
So we can amend it live.
I'm not
I'm
sure.
gonna amend it right now.
Sorry.
Well, no, because it's the prior year taxes, that's already been paid, so it probably should all come to the town.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point, yeah.
So, but I agree that the tax collector is what I know is what needed to be changed, and so, I don't know if we table it for the next meeting, or,
I think, are we able to, I think we're just able to fill it right in and.
With that said, though, you would still need a
Motion.
motion if we're gonna accept it.
Yep. So I would make a motion that we accept the tree growth penalty supplemental tax warrant for the estate of Roger Bertrand, 2 lots. With the change, to change the tax collector's name at the top of the form to you, Jerry Douglas. For the sum of $9,886.20 on one of the lots and $8,549.00 on the second lot.
I just wasn't sure, Jerry, you're not the tax collector, are you? You are now?
Mhm.
There's so many damn titles these days. Just want to double check.
Spin the hat.
So moved.
All right, I have a second. All in favor in the usual manner?
Discussion.
Thank you. So I'm sorry. Discussion? Concerns?
My only I just have a question. I'm gonna ask a lot of questions. I apologize
It's
until
all right.
because it's
Have
important
at
to
it.
me that I understand why, the whys. That I assume that someone passed away.
Yes.
And so a person would be motivated to do this if they wanted to sell the lot, then it was in tree growth, or they want to do something. Why would a person want to
Take it out of the restrictions that come with the tree
Yeah,
lot.
yeah, that would be,
So
that
it
would
could
be it.
be
Could be
any
anything.
land
Yeah.
use,
And they may,
subdivision, whatever.
Yeah.
It's really their prerogative. I
Yeah.
mean, they might want to harvest the timber.
Okay,
It could be of multiple things.
Yeah.
okay, thank you. I appreciate that. That was my only.
any other concerns, questions? All right. All in favor on the usual motion? All right.
There you go. That's the original.
I got two of them.
Let's just print a new one.
Well, she probably printed some for her.
Oh, she's gonna have to print it.
I don't know. I'll defer it down the other end of the hallway. Is that gonna fly?
What's that?
Just crossing it out.
I mean, this isn't recorded in the registry or anything. It's just a supplemental town form.
That's gonna
so-
get recorded.
Yeah, I mean, if you sign the back page, we can change the front one. That's no big deal if that's. If you sign.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
We can just have her change it. If you don't like the crossing out and just put my name.
It's not that I don't like it. I got a feeling like whoever does it might kick it back. I don't know how these.
What's not recorded in the registry, it's the town kept
It's
document.
just the town kept
Down,
document.
that's what I'm thinking.
Then those rolling.
It's done at the public meeting.
If you're good with it, I'm
Yeah.
good with it.
I mean,
I can,
is it ideal? I don't think so, but is it past muster? Yes, so I mean, it's dated today, so let's just get.
but I'll make a note, when I see Donna, I'll just have her change the front page. It's all the only thing that's gonna change is the name.
I don't think you can change the front page though, because we're signing
No, I
on
don't
the
think you
one that,
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
that has Janet,
I wouldn't,
Yeah.
I wouldn't change anything. I just
Okay.
leave it.
I would just leave it.
So when I guess I should have asked this during discussion, but maybe nobody knows this. So when something's in tree growth, it's not added to their deed?
No,
No?
I don't think so. No, because I think it's a state program, so it only affects the
So are you
taxes.
bound if you buy that property and just start cutting the trees? That's why I would
You're-
think it'd be
you're-
on your deed.
well, I think when yeah, that's why I was asking, because I think when it changes hands, I remember reading something about that.
Right.
It's gonna come out of that transaction and they have to pay, unless they're gonna keep it in.
Oh, unless it comes automatically if they sell it. I don't know. I've never bought a property in tree growth, so I was just curious how that worked.
I'm gonna assume Donna has it done correctly, so.
yeah, oh yeah, she's pretty good at what she does.
But I would say if it does need to be recorded in the registry of deeds and it comes back, then we have it.
Yep.
But I don't think does need to be. It's not notarized.
Right.
Point.
That was another thing that I was thinking is I was surprised that we can
So
sign
this is-
documents
this is-
without a notary.
This is just an assessing
Just an
document.
agreement between the
Assessor,
town and the
yeah.
In assessing, this is what you have to pay to take it out of the tree growth. So I don't think it doesn't get recorded. It's just, it goes in like any of the other tax.
I can't think of another time I've ever done it in 6 years. I don't think I've ever.
I don't think it happens very often.
Well, the good
For
news
that
is,
exact reason.
20 grand to take your,
I did get my notary finally,
Oh, good.
so we're good. So anytime we have to sign,
Passed.
I did,
Nice job.
got my certificate and everything. I just
Jessica.
gotta find it.
I'm a notary.
Oh,
just
nice.
For future reference.
So we're good.
Yeah, I'd love, good luck signing your own name. But no.
No, but I can be there
She can
when
sign
you
for
sign
you.
things, yeah.
All right, is that all our assessors?
So you gotta come out of that,
So
and go
make
back
a
and.
motion that we come out of being the Durham Board of Assessors.
Go ahead.
Second.
Do we say, so right, see, this is me asking my question. So you make a motion, you made a motion or you're
Motion.
asking for a motion?
I could either ask for one, I made one.
You made one,
I made
okay,
one, yeah.
okay, second.
Okay.
If you ask one, you could say so moved.
That's right,
Yes.
right, okay.
All right, any discussion on that?
I think we have-
Otherwise? All right,
Oh,
unanimous.
pass backwards.
Okay, any move to the consent agenda here. Anyone have any concerns with the consent agenda? Anybody, do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So moved.
I'll second that.
Second that. Any discussion?
I'm going to abstain from this vote because I wasn't here for those minutes.
Okay.
So I'd like to
Heather
just not.
abstained?
Yeah. You,
But
well, based on that, should we remove the minutes and vote on the minutes and the warrant articles separately?
Should.
I think so.
yeah,
I'd make an amendment to my motion that we accept the consent agenda as to the minutes from the March 28th, 2023 select board meeting only.
do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion? All right, all in favor there, and then, I'm sorry, Heather abstained from the meeting minutes.
Then I'd make a motion that we accept the consent agenda as presented as to the March 31st and April 7th, 2023 warrants, both payables and payroll.
Do I have a second?
Yes, I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay. All right, that's unanimous. Bunch of signing. Okay. This has Kevin's name on it. Still,
We just cross it out. right?
We can cross it off.
No, yeah,
all right,
we'll have to fix that in
yeah,
Trio.
that's fine.
So I have a question about this just because I don't, right? Am I allowed to ask a question after we've, okay. So, and then I have another question about like the process
remember
of
you're on this
things
side of the
also.
table now.
Yeah, I
That's
know.
fair.
But that, I mean, I am going to ask a lot of
That's
questions.
fine.
Keep asking.
So how do things get on this piece of paper?
Through Trio.
We get
Right, so,
She has, she has, the deputy treasurer creates a warrant. And that's where the checks get written, goes on the warrant.
so a bill comes to the town.
Yep.
This is payroll.
Okay. A bill comes to the town and if we're paying the bill this week, it gets on this piece of paper and that's what we're signing. Is
Yes.
permission to pay that bill.
Yes,
Where am I signing? My name's not on here.
just put it,
Add your name.
just add your name. We'll have to take care of that. Is that the March 31st one?
Yeah.
Yeah, we left Todd on there.
Yeah. I didn't even see Todd's name. Sorry.
So I gotta make some notes.
Okay, so we did assessors, we did. All right, we got-
Donna got
It's-
all
I
the
get
right
it.
name, because
I get
it's, it's.
It happens.
All right.
yeah,
We
it's
have
certainly-
town-
There's always, this first meeting is always.
And does anybody ever question any of this stuff? Is
you
it
can-
just,
Sometimes, like, yeah.
okay,
So yes, if you see something that you have,
I'm just, yeah, that's what I want to
yeah,
know is like, is
absolutely.
it appropriate to ask a question
Sure.
if I have
Yeah.
a question about something that's,
Oh, absolutely.
okay.
You may not get the answer right
Yep.
then, because I may not know, because I don't.
Or the answer you want.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's probably more like
But
it,
any
right?
question you have, we can always look into, absolutely.
Okay.
So with this here, do we need to call out each appointment as we go through?
No.
Okay,
They're just reappointments, me, Jessica, everybody. So yeah, you can just,
we're just authorizing the town to conduct business the
Right,
way that we
okay.
always have.
so this is just a no voting or anything on this?
no,
So while we're signing this gigantic stack of papers, can I ask some other questions I have
Sure.
about like process and stuff like that? So if I have things that I would like to bring up or address or, that type of thing, am I emailing you and asking you to make that an agenda item? Am I asking everybody else if they want to talk about it? Like, what's the process to be able to bring something up?
I think you email me, but you should CC your board
Okay.
at
Okay.
the same time. So they're aware that that's something you want to
Okay.
talk about.
So like, for example, tonight, one of the things was Alan said, do you follow Robert's rules, whatever. And that question had come up before about meetings and how they're run and that
Passes around, maybe.
procedure or, like a code of conduct or, that type of thing. I would like to have if there's a policy that exists around that, I'd love to read it. If there isn't, that's something that I would like to have exist.
In my office, there's like it's like a microfilm, hard copy Robert's Rules thing that I can photocopy and give it to you so you can kind of read that. I can show it to you too.
Let's spread the wealth here. Josh, you wanna?
A lot of the stuff Heather is kind of, as he alluded to in the beginning of the meeting,
There's a
it's
big
kind of
bag.
dictated by MMA. So if you go in there,
Mm-hmm.
they lay out structures and procedures and so forth.
One of those.
Which one you got?
I'll give you that one.
One thing Mitch did that I really liked was he did like new business and old business.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of like that. I may adopt that in the agenda, just so you folks know that in old business, it has been talked about before. So like,
Right, we talked about that.
so for example, when George and John come in to talk about this ordinance review committee, I'd put that under old business
Mm.
and it would trigger your
Yeah.
thoughts to know that you talked about it before.
Memories.
So differentiate between old and new. I kind of like that. Some things do get tabled for a later date, you know, so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Need a stamp, buddy. I say
I
that
know,
every
I was
year.
thinking of
I
that.
say that every year.
I'm thinking digital signature, but
So can I just ask, these forms talk about, I do hereby vote to appoint and confirm you? Do we not need a vote for these?
Are they,
That's what the forms say. So I just,
Which, yeah, the reappointments.
instead of saying reappoint, I still think it's a reappointment. We do this every year after annual town meeting.
I think I blocked
You know,
it out.
Can
Just-
you just
just
do
for-
a mass vote, like a
We could-
mass voting to,
I'm just saying, this is what the form says.
I can't think of another time where we've, because if we went in and we started naming all these names and all that stuff and appointing, I mean, then there'd be discussion. We've never gone in an executive session for this, so I can't.
Right. And we'd have to if you wanted to discuss
Right.
those names, yeah.
is it appropriate to say you like a motion?
Yeah, I mean, that's a
for us
catch-all.
to
There's nothing
vote
wrong with doing
To
that.
approve the appointments presented, as presented, and then,
There's nothing wrong with doing that.
Yeah.
It covers your bases. I can't remember if we've done that form. I know we haven't gone, all I'm saying is I know we haven't gone into like an executive discussion to talk about, hey,
No.
should we be appointing Josh as the road commissioner?
No, I'm just,
No, it's a great question. I can't remember to say mine. I'd defer to Jerry on that one.
And I'd have to defer to the clerk.
Well, then,
No, I'd make a motion that we
Yeah,
accept
that's-
the reappointments as presented by the clerk.
second.
Okay, any discussion? A motion on the floor? Okay.
4-0.
4-0. Everything passes.
Everyone gets rehired.
Yeah, everybody gets rehired and gets their jobs back, which is a good thing, because everybody's doing a great job.
Yeah, I think it would be like, I know you would definitely need, like, for example, like, I happen to have Alan here, if we hired a new code officer. But being that we have to have a code officer, it's kind of implied, right? I guess we could take away electrical inspections from them, or we couldn't collect the money.
Okay, another question. I'm on the appeals board. I think I have to not be anymore, correct?
We should look into that.
Oh, you missed.
I would say yes, because we are the power over the appeals board if it gets to us.
Right.
So I would
You
think.
couldn't
she
be in
would
two
have
places at once in that case, yeah.
to be a conflict.
That's true. I think, right, other committees you could be on.
Well, we're not necessarily, we're the ones who get involved if it goes
If it
beyond
goes
appeals, if it
beyond
goes to
appeals,
court.
right.
then it falls into
Then
our
it
desk.
falls, right, and then that would be a problem.
So yeah, I would agree.
And then I plan to talk to Milt, but I feel like I should not I know that at one of the other meetings, it was discussed that someone can sit on the budget committee and also on the select board. I want to talk to Milt about that. I feel like, you know, I'm going to have my opportunities to ask questions and have input in the budget sitting here. And I'm not sure
Big time.
how appropriate it is to sit on both.
I wouldn't think it would be, honestly, but I don't know enough about it to give you a definitive answer because they're both elected officials and they're both kind of tasked to overlook each other.
Mhm.
That's what I've said, is like the committees would be
I know when
non-elected.
I can only speak from the past. I know, I believe Kevin had to resign from the budget committee once he got on the select board. I'm trying to think if we ever had anybody else. No. Kevin was.
I don't think we should be on any of the budget-related committees because we have the vote here,
Right.
and that would give us,
Yeah, it's kind of like, that'd be almost the same as being on like the planning board. It's just
Yeah.
dabbling into too many.
Rich, you didn't sign the top.
So
one.
I don't know what needs to happen. Oh, Jessica said I need to write a letter of resignation
Yep.
to both of those things. And then that takes care of it. It'll,
Yeah, but I don't know the exact answer.
I think you signed all the other ones.
I think that one's all
Of course,
set.
I have
Jerry?
it.
Should have been a closing attorney, buddy.
Done it.
Did you?
I did have a stamp for that.
Yeah,
Never seen one
that
that
was
was
good. Yeah, it's a lot of signing.
brutal.
Although recently, the way they close on these things, it's a lot easier.
You still have, mentioned the upcoming meetings.
Yeah, we still have, all right, well, everybody's finishing up signing. All right, we have upcoming meetings here. We got the select board meeting on 4/25 and 5/9 at 6:30 at the town office. Any other meetings of note other than what's written here, Jerry?
I'll add more in the next meeting, but
Okay. Do we need an executive session tonight?
no, we don't.
Anybody? Okay. Do I,
Ask for,
what's that?
ask for a motion. to adjourn.
Yeah, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
A second? Oh, I was a second.
Second.
Second. All in favor? Continue signing. Thank you, Devin.
Thanks, Devin.